And they are Ask Tony Anything ATA, first one of 2024. Good to see you, Tony. How are you?
Wonderful. How are you, Scott?
I'm good. Did you enjoy your holidays?
I'm still enjoying my holiday. Nobody knows it, but yes, I did.
You just told me, and so I think I do know it.
Now the whole world knows,
Oh, world.
or they will
Yeah,
soon.
yeah. I'll tell you what, I had a fantastic holidays out here, and myself, I'm in Colorado for those on the call that have any remote interest whatsoever. And
Did you get to ski?
did not ski. I golfed. And the weather was so good on
Y'all.
the shortest day of the year, December 21st. I was out golfing here in Castle Rock, Colorado, and it was just a beautiful day. My son and I, no jacket required. It was wonderful. So think of that.
I think it was about 10 degrees here.
About 10 in
Yeah, maybe
Tony's
not
in
that.
outside of Omaha in Elkhorn, Nebraska. And oh, great. So we have a number of folks here that are joined. I applaud you. First, January, what is it? January 3rd. And here you are, activated fiduciaries and ready to go for the new year. I'm excited for what we got accomplished in 2023. And I'm excited for 2024 as we kind of roll into this next chapter of the CAA, and also the next chapter for HPfid in helping you and all of our members become more educated, more activated, and learn more ways to pay less for healthcare while improving your fiduciary process and your compliance. It all goes hand in hand. And once again, as a reminder for everybody, the CAA is a law that is for you, the employer, 100% for and benefiting the employer. But the challenge in that is, in order for it to be for and benefiting the employer, the onus or the responsibility is also on the employer. Now, Tony, if you leave, it's no longer Ask Tony Anything, but about your
I needed a little more light on my very pretty face there.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so purpose of this call, Ask Tony Anything, and go ahead and raise your hand if you have any questions, and let me see if there's any in the Q&A yet. There's nothing in the Q&A, and I think you all have access to the chat as well. And so chat away, ask questions. Let me go ahead and I'm going to just turn everybody on so that you can, we'd love you to turn on your camera, turn on your mic, and let's just collaborate. So let's see if I remember how to do it here. Going to go down the line. There's Byron. How you doing, Byron? Good to have you here again. There's Heidi, Jessica. All right, bunch of great folks. So folks, you've all been turned on as allowed to speak. You're by default, you're on mute and your camera is not on. And you don't have to turn on your camera, but we always love it when you do. And you got to remind me now, Byron, I know you're a benefits advisor. You're pretty advanced on things. How'd your customers do, Byron, with the CAA at the end of the year?
They did fairly well, except we're still writing letters out to the carriers.
Good. Yeah.
The tack we decided to take was because the carriers all published that they were going to do it, so we make the attestations for us. The fully insured, I need to back up. Fully insured cases.
Thank you.
It's self-insured, obviously. Somebody else had to do that. The TPAs that we have for self-insured cases all did the attestation. So what's happening now is I mapped out some form letters for the clients, both the fully insured and the self-insured, although the self-insured are easier, that they're writing the general counsels of each of the carriers and asking for proof that the attestations were made and details on the attestations. So we'll see what happens with that.
I like the fact that you're taking documentation seriously, because if it's not documented, it didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I do have a question though.
Sure.
So, a client write to me and, they did an asset sale and closed their business in mid 2022.
I'm sorry, mid 22?
2022, correct.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, who did the sales of the assets, the sale?
A client,
Plan sponsor.
firm,
Okay,
Yeah.
continue on.
plan sponsor made an asset sale and closed their business.
Yep,
So because it's an asset sale, I believe the purchasing employer does not have springing liability, to use a legal term. And there remains a liability to attest for the period of time between 2021, 2022 that there was no gag clause. Am I correct about that?
Well, a true sale of the assets does imply that the liabilities remain with the seller. So you've got that right. But in these instances, I always ask the client to produce the purchase agreement, because that's what I would call the common law. That's typically what happens as the default. Sometimes you look at these purchase agreements and funny things happen. You mentioned springing liability. Most of the time, for instance, the liability to offer COBRA will say belongs to the successor employer, in this case, the purchaser. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes by contract, it will remain with the seller. So you're right on from a common law standpoint, but I have seen purchase agreements that allowed certain liabilities to spring forward and not remain with the seller. Just saying, it's
Yeah.
always best to see the agreement, but generally speaking, you are correct.
I'm imagining they're not going to do that because this was a professional corporation.
Okay.
So
So it wasn't like in manufacturers or something like that.
No, attorney firms.
Okay, well, yeah, as an attorney, I can tell you that sometimes they mess up, but you know, I mean, they really do. There's, especially when it comes to things like springing liability for successor liability on COBRA, things like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I hope that you're right, because that is the common law.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Tony, we got a fun one here in the Q&A. Can you open that? Do you see it there, Tony?
I'm gonna open it right now.
All right. And
How about-
Jessica,
Okay.
it was Jessica, right? You can ask that live in person if you want. Maybe you didn't want me to say your name, but Tony, go ahead and proceed forward.
I'm gonna quickly, our company's only 170 employees. We had some pushback from our broker when asking for more data, saying that it didn't apply to us if we were large enough or self-funded. We are fully insured. Is this right? Well, there's a fairly common answer to that is, if you're assuming you are not, and I don't know your company, but assuming you're not a governmental entity or a quasi-governmental entity or some, church plan or something that wouldn't be subject to RISA, you're subject to the CAA. If you are 2 lives or more, funding methodology is immaterial, level funded, self-funded, minimum premium, fully insured, Jack and Joe, we're over the hill. I mean, anything you want, it doesn't matter. That has nothing to do with it. So you are subject to it. Frankly, I see the problem being the broker for not knowing that.
Hey, this is Jessica, actually, just to give some more clarity there.
Sure.
They did say that we are subject to CAA and that our attestation's taken care of and all that. But through this whole process, they've been very arm's length, I guess, telling us that we don't really need this information and I'm asking for more than is necessary. And I was just basing this off of the resources available in the educate or activate portion of HPfid.
Mhm.
So I was asking for that individualized data, and they said, well, we don't really have access to that, and you're too small, so they're not going to give it to you, and you're not self-funded, so you don't have the resources. So
Jessica,
that was kind of more about the data.
Jessica, what state are you in?
Kansas.
Kansas. Okay, you're a border state to where I live, but I'm not familiar with their laws. Every state has different laws regarding small group health insurance, whether or not it's community rated or fully pooled. And in some cases, I'll take my own state, under 50 lives is pooled, and you can ask for that data all you want. And frankly, it doesn't even exist. It's aggregated with other data. But I would be shocked, I guess would be the right word, at 170 lives, if you were pooled with someone else's information. I mean, if you are, it's a state law. State law says insurance carriers don't have to divulge that. You would think that the federal law, which is what CA is, would trump that, but we're not. That's a bad choice of words, maybe, but it would overlay that. But if for some reason Kansas says, say under 200 lives, under 175 lives, it's all pooled data and it's just in the aggregate, then you've done what you have set out to do. You've made a good faith compliance effort. But as a broker for 35 years, that doesn't sound right. And if you're truly free of the gag clauses, which they attest to do on your behalf, they can't use the excuse that they don't want to give it to you. The only excuse is it's not available. That doesn't sound right, that 170 life group, the claim data is not available. Heck, a lot of
Jessica,
170 life groups are still funded.
Jessica Scott Kerr here, and may I suggest I could set up a call with Brian, our chief data guy, and you could have a chat with him, and we could collaborate with you directly, and we could include your broker about how you could get access to your data. I'm not going to promise that we could get access to your data, but I would say almost the opposite of what your broker's saying, that at that size, we would have a good chance of getting your data.
I would love to meet with Brian, and maybe
Yeah.
we can make sure that I'm understanding everything correctly.
Yeah.
But it's especially, it almost sounds like our broker is saying that this is Aetna's fault and not their fault. So I'm just trying to parse through the crap,
That's why we're here. Activated fiduciaries, we work through the crap. That's our new tagline for today.
I might just add, Jessica, that none of CAA is on the broker or the carrier. It is all focused on the employer, because the only fiduciary obligation under ERISA is for you as the employer to your employees. So they can say no and be a pain in the butt and a thorn in your side. And the only real remedy you have is they don't have a fiduciary obligation, is to find a new broker or find a new carrier. So they can be a pain, but what's going to happen in the near future, what we're encouraging people to do when they go out for bid, that as part of your RFP process, you simply state in your bid specs that we're only going to work with people who will, provide information under the CAA to our specifications. They're going to find that they're eliminated if they do this. Is it Aetna?
Yes.
Well, I'm not surprised if it's Aetna or Cigna, because they have taken this course. But again, the only caveat that they could be right would be is if there's a state law saying there is no individual information available for plans that size, but that does not sound right. I don't know anybody at 170 lives.
Yeah, and just to recap, we encourage everybody to get a subscription to your data. If you don't know how, email me offline here or ask, and we'll help set you up with how to access your data. It is amazing how much you can learn and how much you can, how much unnecessary cost you can identify to eliminate. And keep in mind, whether you're fully insured or others, at the end of the day, you're paying for your user population's usage, how much they use and what they pay. And the more you can bring that cost down, you're not going to be hit with these increasing costs. Yes, there's a more direct cause and effect with self-insured and level funded, but fully insured is the same thing as well. Now, it's hard to get, the CAA helps eliminate the obstacles to get the data, but it doesn't mean you're for sure going to get your data. Things that affect that are your carrier and if they're going to support us in the effort, but then also the size of the company. But like Tony said, small firms are pooled, but a firm of your size, we would assume not, and that you would want to get your data. And
Hey, Jessica, I'm gonna jump in. One of the other people on the call, a friend of HPfid, Mark Flores, who is also in the chat box. It's a good reminder. I mean, this is, I know, focused on CAA, but there's a lot of other amendments to ERISA that are important. And Mark chimes in that there are other rules, regs that govern the disclosure of certain data, such as HIPAA. So there are certain things that maybe cannot be divulged under HIPAA, but typically there's three what I'd call exceptions to HIPAA. One of them is the smooth administration of the healthcare plan. So it never shocks me when Aetna or Cigna or somebody else says, oh, we can't divulge that because of HIPAA. And that's easy to shoot holes in because there are exceptions to that. So if they try to pull that, there's also that out there. And appreciate you bringing that up, Mark.
Well,
All
thank
right.
you. I'd love to meet with someone on HPfid so I can make sure I'm on the right track and then possibly pull them in with our broker
Perfect.
as well.
Perfect. And we're friendly and supportive of your broker, by the way. So we're not a broker, not a threat to him. And so sometimes they don't understand at first, but I'll set that up, Jessica, and you'll enjoy meeting Brian. And he's a new grandfather. His daughter had a grandson on Christmas Eve. And so Brian is a newly minted grandfather. Let's see. Let's go to this next one, Tony.
Alyssa.
Yeah, Alyssa said,
Is it
I'll
known
read
when the new 2024 CA regulations will be published? Has any more information come out since HPfid published the video regarding what is to come in 2024? I noticed while we were chatting with another listener, I think you sent a link to our FAQ, Scott. Did you do that just a few minutes ago?
Yeah, I did. And that's the FAQ that we just recently did last week.
Right. It's not a video, but it's 5 or 6 questions that we've been getting a lot of just in the last week or two of 2023. But to answer your question more directly, they've been, it's kind of all quiet on the Western Front. Haven't said very much or very much to its material. We talked about in that prior video what's coming up on EOBs and surprise billing and that sort of thing. Those are still out there. To the best of our knowledge, they haven't been delayed. Here we are on the 3rd day of January. I can't also say that they're being enforced either. I mean, I think enforcement is going to come slower than quicker. And based on some of the legal actions we're following being filed, it's almost fathomable, but you might see lawsuits before you'll see DOL fines. Now, not at I use the last listener, not at 170 employees, but some of the large ones, some of the bigger law firms who are probably taking this on, on some sort of a percentage of the judgment. But there is action. It's picked up a lot in the last 3 months, but pretty silent from DOL and HHS as far as the next final regulations. And there's really no such thing as final. Section 125, which deals with cafeteria plans, was passed in 1974. We're still dealing with interim regulations. And that is just about 50 years now. And we've had lots and lots of regulations, but this is going to be an ongoing.
You remember that when that one came out, Tony?
I was just out of college, but I got out of college when I was 11, so I'm not as old. But we're keeping an eye on it, and we'll publish something as soon as we hear more regulations.
All right. Alyssa, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Great. It was a good question. Thank you.
Christy.
My good friend Christy, if an employer missed the attestation deadline, is the best advice to get it done ASAP and hope for the best. Tony.
Yes. If and when the DOL begins to apply penalties, the longer you wait, it would be like not paying your personal income tax. The way to toll any potential violation, toll meaning to stop it, is to file. So you want to do that, if for no other reason to toll the fines, but as long as you're non-compliant, you are opened up to potential participant plan lawsuits. And I'm telling you, plaintiff lawyers who have gotten tired of chasing ambulances are now chasing plan sponsors. And this, like in 2008, when they started going after the bigger companies on violations for disclosure on fees in the retirement business, this is the next frontier. So yes, file right away. Don't worry about being in an admission of guilt. If you look at the attestation website, the CMS website, it frankly is already an admission of guilt. You only have one choice. Yes, I'm attesting that there are no gag clauses. And all of you who are fully insured and had your TPA or carrier file for you, you really have no idea if those gag clauses were present or removed. So it's almost forcing employers into a lie because there's no other option. The option should be there that says something like, well, we've made a good faith effort, and to the best of our knowledge, it's not, rather than saying, no, there's no gag clauses in there. So file as quickly as possible.
Good, good, good. All
We
right,
addressed Mark's comment when we were
right.
and talking with Jessica. And again, thank you, Mark. What else we got?
Yeah, folks, bring in some more questions. This is a lot of fun. Tony, can we pull up that FAQ? In fact, I put just as a reminder to everybody in the chat, I put a link to the FAQ that we published, and I brought that up here. And Tony, let's just take a quick look at that and maybe address those. So, you know what? You want me to share my screen, Tony?
I think you need to share your screen because I can't seem to bring it up. I know it's in there. I wrote it, but I can't see it.
I'm going to find the share screen button. Here it is.
Okay.
Boom. And I'm just going to do that one. Okay.
Well, this is coming up. I would say the last week of maybe 2023, around Christmas time, we were getting a lot of active questions from brokers on, what do we do? We're getting to the end of the year. One of them was very similar to the question we just addressed, is we're late or we're going to be late. What do we do? So what we did, and Scott's brought it up here, is it's more of an FAQ. There he is, perfect size, that talks about some very commonly asked questions. And I'll just quickly run through those. The first one was, where do I send my HPfid.com gag clause removal letters if you're still sending letters when the carrier or TPA has not, or maybe will not, provide a lead contact for CAA compliance? So, you're dealing with, let's pick on Aetna because they were brought up, with 50,000 employees. Well, who do I send them to? Early in the conversation, I believe, Byron is saying they were sending it to the legal counsel. And that's fine if you can get that name. But what I wanted to suggest here that we focus on, as much as it's important to comply with CAA, it's a qualitative, not a quantitative law. You're judged on your effort. It's a good faith compliance effort. Nobody will judge you really on the results of that, because as in some cases, I think we saw Jessica who's trying to get her information and can't, but she's making the effort. And as long as she documents the effort, that's okay. She wants her information to complete what I'll call the benchmarking responsibility under CAA. Well, she can't get it without the data, so she darn well will be able to prove that she made the effort. So compliance, first and foremost, is about effort. And you want to focus what you can control, and that means sending the gag clause removal template letter to your best known contact. Now, that might mean your rep that you work with every day. Send it by email, follow it up with paper if you can, but something that you can document that you have sent it, and specify that I want this answer back by a deadline, whatever it is, 10 days I suggested. If no response, repeat it, document your written efforts, and you're going to be held responsible for the effort that you made. Remember, CAA is only effective against the plan sponsor. Plan sponsor does everything they can't get the answers, there's not going to be a fine. That should be an affirmative defense against any fine and or legal challenge, I think. So that was the first question we addressed. The second question we addressed, I was trying to move the screen, I can't. My insurance company or TPA or pharmacy manager, PBM, have notified me that they will or can complete the gag clause prohibition attestation on behalf of our plan. Is this okay? Can they do this for me? Will we be compliant with CA gag clause prohibition if they do? So it's very clear in what I'll call the interim regulations that any party can legally complete the attestation on behalf of the plan sponsor. I could do it for any of your plans. Now, it's not going to be worth much because I haven't ever seen the document. So if the plan drafter, excuse me, the document drafter, i.e. the carrier or the TPA, says they're going to do it, and you don't have the resources to do it yourself, which most of you don't, you're not typically employing ERISA attorneys, yes, it is okay. But as I say, the better question may be, who's the best party to accurately attest on your plan? That might be the carrier or the TPA. Scott, if you could page up just a little bit so we could see the whole, there we go. Our advice is, if you choose to use that third party, and we know that's the path of least resistance to attest on your behalf, we use a trust but verify. If they did it, okay, but verify that they did it, when they did it, and ask for, even if it's a screenshot of the CMS attestation, so you can verify that it's done. Because if it's not documented, as we said before, it didn't happen. The best case scenario, you get to look at it because you're taking their word for it, and they have no vested interest in being compliant. They are not going to be fined. You're going to be fined. They're not going to be sued. You're going to be sued. So if you can do it on your own, great. Otherwise, rely on them, but verify. The third question, if a third party completes the attestation on behalf of our plan, does that relieve us of liability if gag clauses remain in our agreements? No, no, and no. You can delegate responsibility. You can never delegate liability when it comes to CAA or any ERISA responsibility. It's on you. It's not on any third party. You cannot shift liability. Now, does that mean you wouldn't have a cause of action against them if they say in their document, we are going to do this on your behalf, and we certify that we have done this? Doesn't mean that at all. But that's a contractual obligation between you and that carrier or TPA. That does not insulate you from fines. That does not insulate you against lawsuits. Doesn't mean you can't enjoin somebody in that lawsuit, but a competent judge will throw that party out. It's on you. That's a separate civil lawsuit. So remember, delegation is fine, but it doesn't get you off the hook legally or from a standpoint of fines or penalties.
Hey, Tony, let's speak to what are the motivations? If I'm an insurance carrier, what's my risk and reward for me to just go tell my customers that, oh, we're fine and we'll attest for you? What's their risk of, and what's their reward?
Well, the reward is probably 98% of the employers are going to say, good, that's one thing off my plate. And they're either never going to see that agreement or read that agreement or have their broker read that agreement or their risk accounts. So they get away with it and they're able to keep gag clauses in there. So what happens 8 months from now when you say, we'd like to see this report, and our prescription drug data sent in, we'd like to see that in detail, and we want our mental health parity. The risk they're running is, oh, we can't give you that. And you say, why? Well, look at your contract. It says we don't have to. But you said you removed the gag clauses. So they are running that risk. The reward is they get away with it as long as they can. There's a reason they don't want to give you that data. There's a mountain of information. And if you scratch away a little bit, there's a lot of gold there. They want to keep your gold.
I mean, they're the ones that put the gag clauses in the contracts in the first place.
It's not an accident that those clauses are in there.
Right.
Not an accident.
All right. So here we got Christie's question. We already addressed that one. If we're late in attesting, should we attest anyway?
Yep.
Yes. So we covered that, I think, pretty good already. And let's jump down to number 5. When I read the language on the attestation page, the only choice is to attest and certify that it is completely free of gag clauses. Is there a second choice, Tony?
Interestingly enough, there was. Back in March or April of 2023, remember this gag attestation clause website was brought to life on February 23rd of 2023. It's easy to remember because it was 22323. It actually had a second choice. And the second choice, read something to the effect, and we actually put out some information on that too, because we sent a letter to the Department of Labor and HHS authorities addressing this concern that there should be a second choice that said, we've put together a step-by-step process, a fiduciary process. We've done the best we could, but because of a lack of response or not having the choice to file on our own behalf, we can't certify for sure that they're gone. And that's a valid choice, and it did exist because the law calls for a good play compliance effort. Again, qualitative, not quantitative. But that answer disappeared. So now when somebody's attesting on your behalf, you never saw the document, you never read it, you're taking their word for it. That looks and sounds to me like the plan sponsor, who's the only one responsible, lied.
Yep.
And they didn't lie by choice, they lied by default. So, and that's when we get down to the bottom, our process, which is truly a process, which we hope would insulate you as an affirmative defense, is, look at your funding methodology, follow your playbook, comply and save. And we haven't emphasized today, all that much about saving. Today's been more about compliance, but the quicker you comply and the quicker you can get your data, benchmark that data, that's what leads to hopefully the 2024 savings.
Yep. Tony,
to see if there's more questions down in the Q&A.
Yeah, let me read this one. Mark asked a really good one. I like this one.
Mark only asks good questions.
Yeah, that's why we bring him. Thanks, Mark. Can employees bring a cause of action against employers for non-compliance with CAA?
Yes. And let's go back to your first year of law school, everybody. You took a course called torts. And torts is about the word negligence. And a negligence claim will say this, that a party is responsible if they committed an act that was the proximate a negligent act that was the proximate cause of damages. So all a plan participant need do is state that my plan sponsor was negligent in putting together a fiduciary process that was the proximate cause of my damages, and my damages were as follows. Because they didn't do that, there were no plan savings that could have easily been derived by changing networks, changing administrative service agreements, etc., which caused the plan cost to increase or not decrease, which caused our premiums to be higher, part of which I pay. It's a fairly simple cause of action. And if they don't want to go that route, another way they're going, and I think might even be a primary route, is by not committing to a process, a fiduciary process. We can't say that their partners, like brokers and who do not divulge their compensation, maybe they're being overpaid and they're being paid out of the funds from our health and welfare fund, and we're being damaged in that matter. So it's fairly simple. A negligent act was the proximate cause of my damages, and my damages are thus and so. A long answer to Mark's question, can employers bring a cause of action against employees for non-compliance with CAA? Yes.
That was a great one. Mark, great question. Thank you. I'm going to do a last round robin. Anybody want to raise your hand and speak or type one in?
Does Jessica have another question up there? Edna also said they would complete the attestation. But I'm sorry, Edna also said that they would complete the attestation on our behalf, but refused to send any confirmation that they did. We saved the email saying they would do it as our proof that they did. Do you think this is okay as well? Well, it's best efforts. If that's the best you can get, yes, but boy, I would save that. But it sure is curious that they refuse to send any confirmation. That bothers me a lot. You know, you can attest on your own behalf, even if they did, you could attest also, but without the document, without the chance to review it for gag clauses, you know, then you're almost in a bigger pickle. Now you've looked at it and say, yeah, it's free of gag clauses, when maybe indeed it is not. But document your process, Jessica.
Tony, on that topic then, what if Jessica went out there today and tested, and it was previously attested, so basically there'd be 2 for her firm. What do you think of that?
Well, it's okay that there's 2, and they're probably going to go by chronological order, but I would just be wary if she takes it upon herself to do it and tries to do it. Effort is what counts. Could it weigh heavily that, okay, the first time she didn't look at it and she took their word. Now she looked at it and still says there's no gag clauses, if there really is. If you're going to take on the responsibility, then do it right. Either use your broker or your counsel and do a thorough review before you attest on your behalf.
Okay, that brings us to another topic. We have an offering which is coming online soon. Yes, it would have been nice if it was 3 months ago, but we have an offering coming online soon where you'll be able to pay a small fee and submit your agreements, and using artificial intelligence and a nice report back, you'll be able to see in that report the gag clauses that are in your agreement. And if you want to do that right away, if you're anxious to do it today, reach out to me, please. But otherwise, this will be incorporated within HPfid. There's an additional fee for that service. We're using a third party for doing that, but it's pretty nice. We're still in the process of final testing and integration here, but coming soon. So that'll make it easier, so that because these gag clauses, there's no big flashing red sign saying this is the gag clause section. There's
Right.
11 different types, if you've seen in our previous educations, and they're kind of threaded without and throughout, and they're worded. You kind of got to decipher. It's like, oh yeah, that would restrict me from keeping my data long term or benchmarking with that data, things like that. So anyway, using the service will make it easier for you for like $500 to in 1 week, and then you'll get a report back on your gag clauses. Be fun to have for those that were, oh, there's none here and we attested on your behalf. Hey, don't trust them. Trust but verify. Let's upload your contract, process it, and let's just see what we find. So
It
please,
might be the best $500 you ever.
right,
Yeah.
right. We're excited about that.
That sounds like
right.
a great service.
Oh, good. Who was that? Jessica. Great.
That was me. Yeah, we were considering talking to a lawyer next year and reviewing all our contracts with them. But if you have a service like that, that would be great.
Yep. So Jessica, I already did the email introduction for you and Brian. If you didn't get that email, let me know. But I'll also reach out to you and we can talk about that service and maybe give it a trial run. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. All right. I think can employees bring a cause of action? But we did that one already.
We did. That was Mark. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to wind it down, folks. Thank you so much. I think this was a healthy conversation. And, you know, anytime we get to spend time with Tony, that's a good day.
I appreciate you guys and the great questions as usual.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks.